The wealthiest king in history wrote a book about money. His name was Solomon, and scattered throughout the book of Proverbs are financial principles so powerful that modern economists, business leaders, and financial advisors still teach them today, often without realizing where they came from. These aren't suggestions, they're laws, principles that work regardless of your income, your economy, or your era. Today, I'm going to show you 10 of them. And if you apply even half of these, your finances will never be the same. Solomon asked God for wisdom, and God gave him more than any person before or since. 1 Kings tells us that kings and queens travelled from distant nations just to hear him speak. And when he wrote, he didn't write theory. He wrote from experience. He built a kingdom. He managed wealth on a scale we can barely imagine. And then he condensed that wisdom into short, memorable statements we call Proverbs. The financial principles in this book aren't complicated, but they are counterintuitive. They challenge how most people think about money, saving, giving, and building wealth. And the remarkable thing is, they still work. 3,000 years later, in a completely different economy, these laws still produce results. Let's walk through 10 of them. Pay attention to which ones challenge you most. Those are probably the ones you need. If you want to go deeper into biblical wisdom for your finances, subscribe to What in Bible and hit the notification bell. We explore passages like this every week, showing you what Scripture really teaches and how it transforms your relationship with money. The first money law is found in Proverbs chapter 21, verse 20. Precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it. Notice the contrast. The wise have stores, reserves, savings, margin. The foolish consume everything they get. This isn't about income level. The fool isn't described as someone who earns little. He's described as someone who devours what he has. The problem isn't the paycheck, it's the pattern. The wise build reserves. They don't spend everything that comes in. They understand that not every dollar earned is a dollar to be spent immediately. This is the foundation of all financial health. Consumption must be less than income. It sounds obvious, but most people violate this law constantly. They devour, and then they wonder why there's nothing left. Law number 1, store, don't devour. The second law is in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 11. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. This verse destroys the get-rich-quick mentality, lottery winners, overnight successes, quick schemes. Solomon says that wealth gained this way tends to disappear, but wealth gathered gradually, little by little, actually grows. Why? Because the process of building wealth slowly teaches you how to manage it. You develop discipline, patience, and wisdom along the way. But when money comes fast, you haven't developed the character to steward it. This is why so many lottery winners end up broke within a few years. The money came without the growth, and money without wisdom doesn't last. The path to wealth isn't a windfall, it's consistency over time. Small amounts, regularly saved, wisely invested, patiently grown. That's the law. Little by little beats all at once. Law number 3 comes from Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. 2 paths, 2 outcomes: the diligent plan and reach abundance, the hasty rush and reach poverty. Planning isn't a lack of faith, it's wisdom in action. Joseph planned for 7 years of famine. Nehemiah planned before rebuilding the wall. Jesus told his followers to count the cost before building a tower. Most financial problems aren't income problems, they're planning problems. People spend without a budget. They make decisions without thinking ahead. They react instead of prepare. The diligent sit down, assess their resources, set goals, and create a path. That's not being anxious about tomorrow. That's being faithful with today. Law 3, plan before you act. Law 4 is direct. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 4. A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. There's no way around this one. Lazy hands produce lack. Diligent hands produce wealth. Solomon isn't talking about workaholism or ignoring rest. He's talking about the basic principle that effort produces results. Wishing doesn't pay bills. Working does. Many people pray for financial breakthrough while refusing to put in consistent effort. But God's design is that provision comes through labour. Even in the Garden of Eden, before sin entered the world, Adam was given work to do. Diligence isn't a punishment, it's the God-designed path to provision. Law 4. Work beats wishing. The fifth law comes with a visual. Proverbs chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways, and be wise. Without having any chief officer or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. Solomon tells us to study an insect. Why? Because the ant works without being told. No boss, no supervisor, no accountability partner standing over her. She sees what needs to be done and does it. And notice when she works. In summer, during harvest. She doesn't wait for crisis. She prepares during abundance for the scarcity she knows is coming. This is self-motivation and foresight combined. The ant doesn't need external pressure to do the right thing. She's internally driven. If you only work hard when someone's watching, or only save when you're scared, you haven't learned the ant's lesson. The wise are self-directed. They prepare during plenty because they know seasons change. Law 5. Learn from the ant. Law 6 sounds backward. Proverbs chapter 11 verses 24 and 25. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give, and only suffers want. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. This defies logic. Give freely and get richer. Withhold and suffer want. But this is the generosity paradox that runs throughout Scripture. God's economy doesn't work like the world's. Hoarding doesn't create security, it creates scarcity. Generosity doesn't create lack, it opens the door to abundance. This doesn't mean giving recklessly or foolishly, but it does mean holding your money with an open hand, being willing to bless others, trusting that God can provide for you even as you provide for others. The stingy think they're protecting themselves. Solomon says they're guaranteeing want. Law 6. Give to grow. Law 7 is the foundation of biblical finance. Proverbs chapter 3 verses 9 and 10. Honour the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. Notice the order. Honour God first with the first fruits, not the leftovers. Then comes the filling. Most people pay their bills, cover their expenses, fund their lifestyle, and then see if there's anything left for God. That's not first fruits, that's scraps. The principle here is priority. What you put first reveals what you truly trust. When God gets the first portion, you're declaring that He's your source, not your job, not your investments, not your own effort. And the promise attached is remarkable. Barns filled with plenty, not empty, overflowing. Law 7. Honour God first. Law 8 is one of the most quoted financial verses in Scripture. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender. This isn't saying debt is sin, it's saying debt is bondage. When you owe, you're not fully free. Your future labour is already claimed. Your options are constrained. You're in a position of weakness. Solomon isn't moralising here. He's observing reality. This is how the world works. Lenders have power. Borrowers have obligation. And the more you borrow, the more of your freedom you surrender. This law calls us to pursue freedom. Not because having a mortgage makes you a sinner, but because God's heart for you is liberty, not bondage. Work toward eliminating debt, not out of guilt, but because freedom gives you options that bondage never will. Law 8. Avoid the slave trap. Law 9 is about awareness. Proverbs chapter 27, verses 23 and 24. Know well the condition of your flocks and give attention to your herds, for riches do not last forever, and does a crown endure to all generations. In Solomon's day, flocks and herds were wealth. Today we'd say, know your accounts, know your income, know your expenses, know your net worth. Many people have no idea where their money goes. They don't track spending, they don't review statements, they don't know if they're gaining ground or losing it. Solomon says, pay attention. Wealth doesn't last forever, especially if you're not watching it. A business you ignore will fail. Investments you neglect will drift. A budget you don't monitor won't work. Financial awareness isn't obsession, it's stewardship. You can't manage what you don't measure. Law 9. Know your numbers. The final law takes a long view. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. Notice, not just children, children's children, grandchildren. Solomon is thinking generationally. Most people think only about their own lifetime. Pay my bills, fund my retirement, enjoy my life. But the good man in this verse is building something that outlasts him. This doesn't mean you must leave a fortune, but it does mean thinking beyond yourself. What are you building that will bless the next generation? What habits, principles, and resources are you passing down? The sinner consumes everything and leaves nothing. The righteous build with the future in mind. Law 10. Build beyond yourself. 10 laws, 3,000 years old, still working today. Store, don't devour. Gather little by little. Plan before you act. Work instead of wishing. Learn from the ant. Give to grow. Honour God first. Avoid the slave trap. Know your numbers. Build beyond yourself. These aren't complicated, but they are challenging, because every one of them requires something most people resist. Discipline, patience, generosity, self-control, and long-term thinking. Solomon had more wealth than anyone in his era. He didn't write these laws from theory, he wrote them from experience. And he wrote them so that people with far less could access the same wisdom. You don't need to be rich to apply these principles, but if you apply these principles, you'll be richer, not just in money, but in peace, freedom, and purpose. The question isn't whether these laws work. The question is whether you'll work them. Pick one, start today, and watch what God does when you align your finances with His wisdom. Share in the comments which of these 10 laws challenged you most. And if this video helped you see Proverbs differently, share it with someone who needs biblical wisdom for their finances.